heads up. Stay with us though now. Our reading about full news starts in just a sec.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, June 18th. Your readers today are
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak. And we'll look to our weather forecast. A very windy day today. A couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm in the morning, followed by a passing shower in the afternoon, high of 70. Partly cloudy tonight, low of 57. A couple of showers tomorrow afternoon, high of 68. Saturday, a thunderstorm in the afternoon, and Sunday looks like sun and clouds and pleasant. Our national high was at Needles, California at 107, and the low was at Angel Fire, New Mexico at 32. Our sunrise was at 5:36 this morning, and it will set tonight at 8:57. And our weather trivia question. What was the warmest decade since records have been kept? And the answer is the 2010s. And now we'll go to our news. Trump says he could restart war if Iran defies pact. President Trump on Wednesday defended his interim agreement with Iran, saying it had averted a global economic catastrophe, while warning he could launch fresh attacks if Tehran failed to honor its commitments. Speaking at the close of a G7 summit in France, Trump also said maritime traffic at the Strait of Hormuz had risen sharply since the truce was announced 3 days ago, and expressed hope it could mark the start of a wider peace across the Middle East. We're going to bomb the hell out of them, Iran, if they violate the agreement. I don't want them to. I want them to honor the agreement, Trump told a press conference, adding that the Iranians were smart people. Earlier, he had said, if I don't like it and if they, Iran, don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head, okay? The war, which began with U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran on February 28th, had spiraled into a broader regional conflict, has driven up energy prices, renewed inflationary pressures, and sparked concerns about a major food supply crisis in developing countries. So the one thing I didn't want to see is economic catastrophe. If you kept this going, that could have happened, Trump said. He thanked Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin for being neutral during the conflict, saying they had not thwarted his efforts to curb Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Oil prices fell again on Wednesday on prospects for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, with Brent crude futures below $80 at their lowest level since the opening salvos of the U.S.-Iran conflict. But they later regained more than 1% after Trump said he could resume the war if he was unsatisfied with Iran. Speaking to reporters, a senior U.S. official read out the text of the signed memorandum of understanding with Tehran, but said the parties could still walk away until a binding deal is reached. The 14-point draft, which had already circulated widely before its contents were published, extends a ceasefire announced in April by another 60 days to allow the two sides to negotiate a permanent truce. The memorandum includes an immediate end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, the full resumption of maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, the lifting of a U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, the waiving of international sanctions on Iran, and a plan worth $300 billion for the economic rehabilitation of the Islamic Republic. Iran also undertakes not to build nuclear weapons, reaffirming a vow it had made for decades. Despite his typically combative rhetoric, Trump appears to have achieved little of what he said he wanted at the outset of the war. Iran's theocratic government remains in place, Its stockpile of highly enriched uranium has not been surrendered. Its ballistic missile capabilities have not been destroyed, and it has not ended its support for anti-Israel militias like Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, G7 leaders hailed the agreement at their summit, held in the French town of Evian-les-Bains, an hour's drive along the shore of Lake Geneva, from where the Iran ceasefire memorandum is due to be signed at a ceremony across the Swiss border on Friday. They share Washington's concerns about Iran's nuclear program and other issues, but never endorsed his decision to go to war, and worry Tehran has gained leverage by withstanding the superpower onslaught and asserting control over the strait. We underline the need for the negotiation to address the threats posed by Iran in the region and beyond, and ensure that they never obtain a nuclear weapon, the leaders of France, Germany, Britain, Japan, Italy, Canada, and the U.S. said in a statement. They also demanded an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon, where the memorandum calls for a halt to hostilities between Israel and the Iranian-backed Hezbollah group that have displaced more than 1 million people. Fighting there has abated but not ceased since the agreement was reached on Sunday. And Israel, which was not part of the negotiations, says it retains the right to use force. Trump on Wednesday gently rebuked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over his tactics in Lebanon against Hezbollah. The two men have repeatedly clashed over Israel's refusal to constrain its pursuit of Hezbollah in Lebanon, where a cessation of hostilities is a key Iranian demand. Netanyahu happens to be a good man, gets a little excited sometimes, Trump told reporters. We have a little dispute over Lebanon. I say you can do a little softer touch, Bibi, he said, using Netanyahu's nickname. You don't have to knock down a building every time someone walks into it that's from Hezbollah. Lebanese state media reported fresh Israeli airstrikes and artillery fire in several southern towns throughout Wednesday. Lebanese security sources said Hezbollah has also launched 2 drone attacks on Israeli forces in the south. The group did not publicly claim the attacks. Israel later said 5 of its soldiers had been injured in 2 Hezbollah drone attacks in southern Lebanon. The mood among ordinary Iranians grappling with economic woes, further exacerbated by months of war, remained grim, even as their leaders declared this week's interim deal a diplomatic victory for Tehran over Washington. I think 99% of people are in survival mode and just living day to day, said Amir, 34, a media production company owner in Isfahan in central Iran, who declined to give his surname. I don't think anybody has any hopes anymore. I don't think anybody has any visions of what the future might look like.
New rules proposed to fill vacancies for elected office. A Western New York legislator on Wednesday proposed a new state law to increase public awareness and participation before appointments are made to fill vacancies for elected offices. Assemblymember Patrick Burke of Orchard Park outlined the proposed open process for elected nominations and appointments act outside the office of West Seneca Town Supervisor Gary Dixon, a Republican running against Burke this year to represent the state's 142nd Assembly District. A news release from Burke highlighted the West Seneca Town Board's recent appointment of Mark Priori, to replace former town council member Jeffrey Pekarik, saying the process provided little transparency or opportunity for public input. Priori ran unsuccessfully against Burke in 2024 for the 142nd District, which includes South Buffalo, the Lovejoy and Fillmore sections of Buffalo, Lackawanna, West Seneca, and Orchard Park. Government works best when the people can see it working, Burke said in a statement. A vacant elected office doesn't belong to politicians. It doesn't belong to a supervisor, mayor, county executive, or legislative majority. It belongs to the voters. In response, Dixon said he applauds Burke's sudden conversion to transparency. Dixon said Burke ignored the recent appointment of former Erie County District Attorney John Flynn, a Democrat, as Tonawanda town supervisor, and non-voter selections of now State Senate Jeremy Zellner of Tonawanda to run for the seat vacated by now Mayor Sean Ryan, and Buffalo Common Council Majority Leader Leah Holton Pope, a Democrat, to succeed Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. The last three, given the overwhelming Democratic registration advantage, were the equivalent of appointments to the actual positions, Dixon said. He said he would be happy to take up the issue, which he said he expected to be unresolved once he replaces Burke. Recently, Assembly member Jonathan Rivera also said he wants to change the process for filling vacancies in elected offices in the state, arguing that the system benefits political party bosses and leaves voters without a voice. Rivera is challenging Zellner in a Democratic primary to represent the 61st District in the state Senate. The days of party bosses picking office holders in West New York should be numbered, Rivera said at a news conference last month. Good government groups note many officials at the local, county, and state and federal levels all first earned their seats through appointment or a special election that critics say limited voter choice. Party leaders, however, said they're following New York elections laws. Under the proposed law, statewide standards to fill vacancies would require public notice whenever a vacancy opened up, at least a 2-week application period for interested residents, public disclosure of names and qualifications of applicants being considered, an open meeting for candidates to address the appointing body and public discussion of why a candidate was selected, and a separate public vote at a later date.
$700 million pledged to curb mental illness. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Wednesday announced more than $700 million in new funding opportunities aimed at tackling mental illness, addiction, and homelessness. The package includes a new $96 million grant program, safety through recovery, engagement, and evidence-based treatment, and support, or STREETS, which will award funding to 8 communities, the Department of Health and Human Services said. Each community will be eligible for up to $3 million a year over 4 years. The program is intended to help local governments build coordinated care systems for people experiencing homelessness who have substance use disorders, serious mental illness, or both. HHS said the effort will bring together local governments, healthcare and housing providers, law enforcement agencies, and courts. Kennedy announced the funding during a visit to an Easter Seals, Michigan behavioral health clinic in Clinton Township, Michigan. He said the investments would help move people from the streets into treatment and recovery, strengthen families, save lives, and make communities safer. HHS said the broader package includes $223.1 million for certified community behavioral health clinics, $283.6 million for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, $80 million for substance use prevention, treatment, and recovery programs, and more than $70 million for mental health services and supports. And from the District of Columbia, 2 in 5 fear U.S. might not last 250 years. As the U.S. approaches its 250th birthday next month, 2 out of 5 Americans do not believe it will endure another 250 years beyond that, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll that highlighted deep divisions over how the nation views itself. The 4-day poll, which concluded on Monday, comes amid the polarizing pageantry that President Trump has brought to celebrations for July 4th, which will mark 250 years since the people who became known as the Founding Fathers of the U.S. declared their independence from Britain. Trump has put himself at the center of many of the events to mark the anniversary, including staging a White House cage match on his birthday on Sunday. On Monday, he said he would be the main attraction at a July 4th celebration in Washington that will also serve as a political rally for the Republican as his party looks to keep control of Congress in November's midterm elections. Some 38% of respondents in the poll, including 40% of Democrats and 26% of Republicans, said they didn't think the U.S. will exist as a single country 250 years from now. Two-thirds of respondents, including 85% of Democrats and 50% of Republicans, said they agreed with a statement that American democracy was in danger of failing. The overall share seeing democracy at risk was up from 57% in a poll conducted in August of last year, with the increase driven by more Republicans worried about democracy's staying power. You're listening to a reading from today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour, and we will go to our editorial, Preventable Threat. It's incredible, but here we are. A virus that was formally declared eliminated in 2000 is back, with the potential to cause serious illness and even death. For the past year and a half, measles outbreaks have been occurring all over the U.S., according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As of July 11th, 2,000 confirmed cases were reported across 40 jurisdictions in 2026, with 2.28 cases reported in 2025. Until last year, U.S. measles cases had not exceeded 2,000 since 1992. The U.S. is now on a path to losing its measles elimination status. Elimination means that there has been no uncontrolled domestic transmission for 12 months or more. New York State, including Western New York, has not escaped this eminently preventable health threat. 2 cases of measles were reported in Erie County this month, the first since 2018, with 13 cases reported statewide. There is a good possibility that there are other cases. As reported by the News' Emma Kressage, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was in Buffalo on Monday to urge federal action restoring nationwide programs that would educate the public about how to prevent infection. Schumer is justified in sounding the alarm. A measles infection is nothing to fool around with. Measles is a highly contagious disease spread by airborne viral particles that can lead to severe complications, including encephalitis and death. But until recently, those outcomes were rare because an effective vaccine was able to prevent them. Vaccination averted nearly 59 million deaths between 2000 and 2024, according to the World Health Organization. That changed. It's not difficult to pinpoint the reason. More people are withholding their children from vaccination thanks to an anti-vaccination campaign that has spread misinformation and hesitancy among many communities. Because of its highly infectious nature, measles needs 95% of the population to be vaccinated. Unfortunately, anti-vaccination literature has been making the rounds for decades, has suggested wrongly that vaccinations cause autism, have deadly side effects, or are simply ineffective. And it hasn't helped that the current U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has gone on record suggesting that measles can be avoided through good nutrition and treated with cod liver oil. These factors have combined to reduce vaccination rates. The CDC reports that vaccination coverage among U.S. kindergartners has decreased from 95% during the 2019-20 school year to 92% in the 24-25 school year. The MMR vaccine against measles, mumps, and rubella has been thoroughly studied, with decades of international research attesting to its safety. Prior to its introduction in 1963, major epidemics occurred approximately every 2 to 3 years, causing an estimated 2.6 million deaths globally each year. Before this situation gets any worse, thus far this year there have been no deaths. Schumer rightly insists that federal funding should be restored to local health departments and vaccine hesitancy programs and that CDC experts fired in the federal workforce purge should be rehired. Erie County Commissioner of Health Dr. Gail Burstein also spoke at the Monday news conference, noting that a third case could constitute an outbreak, given that way this infection can spread. Burstein stated, as media and social media are flooded with messages that undermine the credibility of vaccines and public health, we are fighting the germs, and we are fighting a misinformation machine too. We are fortunate to have a medical community in Erie County that supports science, evidence, and the credible body of knowledge around immunizations. Schumer and local leaders are right to speak out now. Measles is one of the most contagious diseases in the world, and we're already seeing the havoc outbreaks have caused in the U.S., notably in Utah, which has reported nearly 700 cases. To paraphrase Burstein, this is the time to know your measles immunity status. Take steps to get an MMR vaccine if indicated, and be aware of loved ones who are immunocompromised.
Local film industry to expand to Cattaraugus. This is Another Voice, and it is written by Sharon Alexis Tom, is a production administrator for Panveni Films in Allegheny. Western New York's film industry has experienced remarkable growth over the past decade, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually and creating opportunities for businesses and workers throughout the region. Much of that success has centered around Buffalo. Now there's an opportunity to extend the momentum into the southern tier. Panveni Films, a locally based production company founded by Murphy Tom, is working alongside community and economic development leaders to establish a film production facility in Cattaraugus County. While the initiative remains in its planning and development stages, recent discussions with Buffalo Niagara Film Commissioner Tim Clark and representatives from the Buffalo Niagara Film Office and Great Point Studios Buffalo have been supportive. The vision is not to compete with Buffalo, but to complement it. That spirit of collaboration was reflected during a recent meeting that brought together Tim Clark, Corey Whitcore, Executive Director of the Cattaraugus County Industrial Development Agency, Bob Fornes, President and Executive Director of the Olean Business Development Corporation, Jeffrey Simmons, Studio Manager at Great Point Studios Buffalo, and representatives of Panveni Films. Rich Wall, Director of Operations for the Buffalo Niagara Film Office, also participated in the discussions. Together, these leaders explored ways in which Buffalo and the Southern Tier can work in partnership to expand Western New York's production footprint. A production facility in Cattaraugus County would help create opportunities for workforce development, skilled trades, tourism, hospitality, and small businesses. Film production is, in many ways, a modern form of manufacturing, one that produces valuable intellectual property while generating economic activity far beyond the studio walls. The Southern Tier offers scenic landscapes, historic communities, industrial assets, and available operating cost. These advantages position Western New York to become an even stronger destination for film and television production. Panveni Films initiative represents an opportunity to diversify the economy, retain talent, and create a new avenue for investment and growth throughout Western New York. And our political cartoon today is from Michael Ramirez. It is one frame. It relates to AIs. And there is it's a large man with a mask, could be a superhero or a bad superhero, and it says on his uniform, Candidate AI Ads. And behind him is all kinds of destruction. There are fires going on, and just a mess behind him, with red and white crosses not allowing any entrance. And as he stands there, a gentleman carrying a bag of groceries is apparently going home, and he said, he says to him, "You've convinced me not to vote for any knuckleheads who use AI-generated deepfake ads," referring to all the ads that are all of a sudden occurring with the use of AI. And that's certainly gotten to be a big topic of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And to our first editorial opinion, coming from Allison Schrager of Bloomberg Opinion. Kids don't rely on the bank of mom and dad. In today's America, one of the rites of passage that marks the transition to full adulthood is paying your own phone bill. By this standard, many people, even those well into middle age, are stuck in an extended adolescence. A survey released this month by the insurance firm Northwestern Mutual says that many Americans, including some in their 50s and 60s, rely on their parents for financial help. Some 56% of all respondents say it is harder to achieve financial independence today than it was for previous generations. The Federal Reserve also conducts an annual survey on financial well-being, and it also reported an increase in reliance on parents to pay bills. About 23% of respondents needed some outside help in 2025, compared to 10% in 2017, including more than 25% of Americans between the ages of 30 and 44. In many ways, this is not surprising. The U.S. is in the grip of an affordability crisis. The cost of housing has soared, as have energy and food. Wages fell last year after accounting for inflation, and the job market has weakened. Student debt is a record high. Meanwhile, many young people see living in a big, expensive city as critical to launching their career. And older Americans who have more wealth than ever after a lifetime of saving and healthy stock returns may think it only natural that they give a little back to their children. But not all of this new reliance on parents is about wealth and earnings. After a decade of stagnation, earnings for young adults are up in the last several years. They also have more financial wealth. A deeper read of the Fed survey also suggests that things haven't changed all that much. Slightly more Americans have 3 months of emergency expenses now compared to 2017, including half of the population 30 to 44. About 70% of those surveyed say their own finances are in good shape, a steady share since 2017. It could be that all the money from their parents is keeping them afloat, and this may explain why they don't appear to be financially worse off than they were before the pandemic. The increased reliance on our parents may also reflect a cultural shift. A generation ago, living with your parents was an indication something had gone wrong in your life. Now it's just a smart way to save money. The pandemic also shifted norms around living at home and accepting money from your family or the government. Making it on your own is no longer something to be proud of or even aspire to. This could all be the result of people growing up closer to their parents. No matter the reason, this over-reliance on parents is a worrying trend. If making it in America now requires help from your family, people who don't have families who can't afford to help them will fall further behind. And while the U.S. has needed-based financial aid for education, it does not exist, at least not yet, for early or even midlife adulthood. There was also something unifying about the struggle of being a young adult. Living in a terrible apartment, barely making rent, eating instant noodles, and asserting your independence. Sometimes living with financial risk can be an important source of motivation. Now, there is another device in this country between who takes money and who can't.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is about 30 minutes past the hour, and we will go to our second opinion piece. It's written by Gautam Mukunda, who is from Bloomberg Opinion. If kings collide, trillionaires' republics become a toxic mix. SpaceX's initial public offering made Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. You might think there's not much you can buy with $100 or $1,000 billion that you can't buy with $1 billion, but there is absolute power. The world's top 10 wealthiest individuals all have fortunes of around $150 billion or more, led by Musk at $1.11 trillion, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. It takes at least $80 billion to get into the top 25. A mega-billionaire, and certainly a trillionaire, has resources that approach or exceed those of many nation-states. To be sure, gigantic fortunes aren't new. At his peak in 1913, John Rockefeller's wealth commanded a share of the American economy similar to Musk's today. What is new is the sheer number of people with effectively limitless resources and how easily they can convert their wealth into power. Mega-billionaires typically employ many people. Those people often reach out to me for advice. The conversation almost always goes like this. They've thrived in the public sector or the military, and now they're struggling because nothing in their new job goes the way they expected, and they don't understand what's wrong. I almost always say the same thing. You used to be a business person or a soldier, but now you're a courtier. You work for a king. You used to be judged by your ability to make a profit or win a war. Now your real job is gaining the king's favor. It's often tough for them to hear, but they usually say something along the lines of, "It all makes sense now." And like the kings of old, our modern-day kings just don't have a court. Increasingly, they have a sword, too. The political scientist Jeffrey Winters calls America a civil oligarchy. Its rich disarmed long ago, hiring lawyers instead of soldiers because the state defends their fortunes for them. That bargain is cracking. Sometimes the breach is direct. Via SpaceX, Musk controls one of America's most important defense contractors. The Space Force keeps assigning launches to SpaceX that its only competitor cannot do. Musk even conducts his own foreign policy. In 2022, he personally declined to extend Starlink coverage over Crimea, stalling a planned Ukrainian strike on the Russian fleet. In Political Science 101, a government is defined as the entity with a monopoly on the legitimate use of violence. That monopoly hasn't broken, but it's under more pressure than any time since Henry Clay Frick sent the Pinkertons against striking workers at Homestead in 1892. Sometimes the breach is indirect. In 2024, 6 Americans each spent more than $1 million on the presidential election. Musk gave about $291 million, the most of anyone, to help boost Republicans. Timothy Mellon, heir to the Gilded Age Mellon fortune, gave more than $190 million. Casino magnate Miriam Edelson, the hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin, and options trader Jeff Yass, and the shipping supplies billionaires Richard and Elizabeth Uihlein, each gave more than $100 million. Both sides play the game. In 2022, the largest donor in the country was George Soros, who gave about $128 million to the Democrats. These sums dwarf what candidates can raise themselves. In Ohio, 2024's most expensive Senate race, the campaigns raised about $113 million. Musk alone spent more than the entire field, about as casually as you'd buy a soda. His spending came to about 1% of the daily swings in his fortune. The exchange rate between wealth and power has never been so favorable, and the purchases are no longer defensive. This is an eternal problem for republics. Marcus Crassus was the richest man in ancient Rome, so rich that by Plutarch's account, he thought no man truly wealthy unless he could pay an army from his own purse. He spent that fortune bankrolling Julius Caesar and building the triumvirate that sidelined the Senate, and in fact, if not in name, overthrew the Republic. But one republic did win this fight. In February 1902, after President Theodore Roosevelt's Justice Department moved to break up his railroad trust, J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier of the age, came to the White House with an offer. "If we have done anything wrong," he told the president, "send your man to my man and they can fix it up." "That can't be done," Roosevelt replied. His Attorney General, Philander Knox, finished the thought. "We don't want to fix it up. We want to stop it." Morgan, Roosevelt later said, "could not help regarding me as a big rival operator." Roosevelt showed that the president was not first among equals. He was simply first, because he is the only person the whole country elects to represent it. Even that victory was a close call. Roosevelt won his legal case against Morgan by a single Supreme Court vote, and he later needed Morgan's help to end a coal strike that threatened to freeze the country through winter. Morgan remained powerful, but the government of the United States was supreme. Crassus would fit right into America today. Musk funded the campaign that got Donald Trump elected as president a second time. He then worked inside the new administration, slashing agencies regulating his own companies. Economists studying the former Soviet bloc saw oligarchs graduate from bending the rules to buying them outright. They called it state capture. The American version is mostly legal. Last year, the kings collided. Trump threatened to cancel Musk's federal contracts. Musk threatened to ground the capsule NASA relies on to reach the space station. Within hours, both stepped back. That's not the rule of law. It's two rival courts negotiating a ceasefire. No democratic government should fear the power of one of its own citizens. Roosevelt's refusal settled for a century that in America only the people are sovereign, but not forever. Musk's trillion is a landmark of wealth. It's also a sign that the old question has returned. In a republic, there is supposed to be exactly one thing money can't buy. We are about to find out whether that is still true. Oh, that's chilling.
And our final opinion is from Catherine Thorbeck from Bloomberg Opinion. A refreshing trend in Gen Z tech, resistance to AI. My favorite tech trend so far this year has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It's the cool girls making their own cyber decks, strange DIY, and highly customized personal computers that explicitly reject AI. They look like props from a cyberpunk movie, usually built on a Raspberry Pi base and spare parts. As one tinkerer whose mermaid cyberdeck videos have drawn tens of millions of views puts it, what we should do with cyberdecks is gate up them from AI and megacorp. The cyberdeck boom follows the iPod as another Generation Z hardware obsession. Many of the models now being hunted online were released before their new owners were born. Going analog has been trendy forever, but this isn't about nostalgia. After Albert Inc.'s Google announced it was integrating AI into its flagship search engine, The rise of AI resistance tech, hardware and software that protects attention, privacy, and agency in a world where chatbots and automation are shoved into everything, is a consumer response to a tech revolution they were never really asked to join. AI might be powerful and unavoidable, but Silicon Valley can't make it cool. The trend of single purpose in anti-AI devices reminds me of when covering technology was fun. Then the bro-oligarchy consolidated power and devices became closed. Monopolistic ecosystems engineered to be addictive and invasive. Social platforms became hotbeds for some of the most brilliant, enraging discourse imaginable, with especially devastating consequences for young users. It's not like big tech has earned our trust before forcing the public to accept another revolution on its terms. AI, we're told, might be conscious, might kill us all, might take our jobs, and is also an inevitable path to abundance. No wonder people are reaching for machines that do less. I understand the appeal. My favorite gadgets this year have been a single-purpose devices that subtly reject the AI arms race. I use my tiny e-reader every day because all I can do on it is read books. I recently bought a purple digital note taker from Japanese stationery company King Jim. All it lets me do is type drafts without a pull of social media or AI suggestions. Karen Howell, author of Empire of AI, a scathing and influential chronicle of the industry's early growth, recently helped launch the AI Resist List, an online directory that helps people push back. Some organizations are teaching people how to poison their data so it can't be used for AI training. Others are helping workers organize labor coalitions. Together, it's a political and cultural response to a technology being deployed faster than the public can understand it or meaningfully consent to it. The industry is starting to take notice. In a blog post this month, Microsoft Corporation President Brad Smith responded to graduates booing commencement addresses that mention AI, calling it a powerful wake-up call for the tech sector. Young people usually lead the adoption of new technologies, he added, so when they recoil, or the industry should pay attention. Perhaps waiting as long as possible before using AI is a good thing. It's easy to outsource homework, essays, and even thinking itself. But the struggle is the point for developing brains. Wrestling with the problem is how you learn judgment, taste, resilience, and all the problem-solving skills required to thrive in this type of rapid change. To his credit, Smith is doing what industry badly needs to do more of. He's trying to have a human-sounding conversation about AI. He pointed to real, even life-saving applications, including firefighters in California turning to AI to spot wildfires, while in Ukraine to remove landmines. But do these useful applications justify their compulsory adoption everywhere else? Young consumers are saying no. That distinction matters for the tech industry. Silicon Valley's favorite argument is that the resisting its version of progress means rejecting their progress itself. The new wave of AI resistance rejects that fatalism. It says people should still get to choose the tech they use and the attention and data they give away. It is the Is the AI resistance doomed against the tens of billions of dollars being poured into the revolution? Probably. Long live the AI.
Federal Reserve keeps interest rates steady. This is from Reuters. The Federal Reserve held interest rates steady Wednesday, but policymakers expect a hike in borrowing costs this year amid growing concerns about inflation lodged above the central bank's 2% target. Later, new Fed Chairman Kevin Warsh said he will launch 5 task forces to review how the central bank conducts its business in critical policy areas, including its balance sheet, communications, data sources, productivity, and jobs, and its inflation framework. He made the announcement at his inaugural news conference after his first policy meeting as Fed leader. New quarterly projections showed 9 Fed officials now anticipate a hike in rates by the end of 2026, and an updated policy statement removed language that was used to flag the likelihood of further reductions in borrowing costs this year. Indeed, the statement, in an early sign of Warsh's influence, removed any guidance about future rate moves altogether, with a revised format that simply stated the rate decision and reaffirmed the central bank's intent to keep ample reserves in the banking system.
Coverage for obesity drugs to be dropped at some firms. Some employers are planning to drop coverage of GLP-1 drugs for weight loss next year as more people take the medications, counteracting some savings from lower prices for Novo Nordisk's Wegovy and Eli Lilly's Zepbound and Foundayo. About 10% of employers who now cover GLP-1 drugs said they plan to drop the drugs in 2027. According to the Business Group of Health, a policy research group for large employers. A second survey by benefits consultancy Mercer said 5% of large employers, which it defines as employing over 500 people, plan to drop coverage of the drugs in 2027. Mercer said 44% of companies with more than 500 employees cover the drugs for obesity. Data from the Business Group on Health show 67% of large employers cover GLPs in 2026. Health insurer Cigna ceased coverage of the weight loss treatments for its own employees effective in July, saying they couldn't buy the medication elsewhere. Newer pills for weight loss, as well as injections from Novo and Lilly, are available through the drug maker's own websites at discounted prices, driven by a deal with the Trump administration for TrumpRx.gov. In January, Novo launched the Wegovy pill, and Lilly began selling its Foundayo pill in April, both of which start at about $149 per month. Lauren Remsper, a director of purchaser, Business Growth Group on Health, said many employers are still concerned that they are not seeing the same savings in their deals with pharmacy benefit managers, industry middlemen who negotiate prices for large companies and health plans, as customers who purchase directly and pay cash. Ruth?
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Delfonso Donald T. Farringer Jr., Kenneth Edward. Schnepp James W. Sr. Stacy Nancy L. Versillo Katerina Nee Ippolito. Walsh Joanne Nee Gormley. Zach Michael, nicknamed Mike. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
And now let's see what the stars have in store for us. Happy birthday for Thursday, June 18th, 2026. You are loyal, energetic, attractive, and adventurous. You have a quirky sense of fun. This is a year of learning and teaching. Take time to renew your spiritual or religious beliefs. Explore philosophies that give you a better self-awareness and get you closer to the meaning of your life. And now remember, each day is great as a star. If you have 5 stars, it's going to be dynamic day, 4 a positive day, 3 an average day, 2 so-so, 1 a difficult day. Aries is going to be a 4-star day. This is a productive day, especially if you work with children, the arts, or the entertainment world, the hospitality industry, or anything to do with sports. Tonight, socialize. Excuse me. Taurus, a 3-star day. You're in a practical frame of mind today, which is why you can get a lot done, especially mental work. Whatever you're doing, you will do carefully with thought. Tonight, relax at home. Gemini, a 4-star day. Your powers of persuasion are strong today, which is why you will convince others to agree with you very easily. Tonight, discussions. Cancer, a 3-star day. Money plans and financial discussions will go well today because you're in a practical frame of mind. You're not afraid to talk to bosses and parents. Tonight, check your money. Leo, a 4-star day. With the moon in your sign today, you're empowered. Furthermore, it is dancing beautifully with Saturn, giving you a sober and realistic view of things. Tonight, you win. Virgo, 3-star day. Your ability to see what's wrong with this picture makes you an excellent critic. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Libra, a 4-star day. Discussions about travel, publishing, the media, medicine, the law, and anything to do with education will be productive today. Tonight, be friendly. Scorpio, a 3-star day. For the most part, this is an excellent day to make your pitch, to ask for permission or approval for something, especially if it's related to your work, your health, or a pet. Tonight, you're admired. Sagittarius, a 4-star day. You love to travel, and today is a great day to make travel plans because you're in a practical frame of mind. Tonight, learn and explore. Capricorn, a 3-star day. If you want to make a claim or fight for your fair share of something today, this is the day because you will get your facts and you'll be prepared. Tonight, check your finances. Aquarius is a 4-star day. This is a wonderful day to schmooze, even if people choose to have serious discussions. Tonight, cooperate. Pisces, a 3-star day. You can make great headway at work today because you're in a solid frame of mind. Tonight, get better organized.
Fashion outlets get tax breaks from IDA. This is from Libby March, who's a news staff reporter. The fashion outlets of Niagara Falls, USA got a much-needed financial lifeline Wednesday after the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency approved a 10-year package of tax breaks valued at $17 million to help it overcome daunting financial challenges. The Town of Niagara Outlet Mall has been battling changing consumer habits, the rise in online shopping, and a drop in foot traffic, particularly from Canadian shoppers who used to make up a significant portion of customers. Those shoppers have been turned off by the Trump administration's threats and mocking comments about Canada, so they aren't coming across the border as much. In addition, California-based Macerich Company, the mall's owner, has a big loan coming due in October with a $74.4 million balloon payment expected. But the mall's valuation has dropped by $82 million since the mortgage was taken out in 2010, so it can't just refinance the loan. Officials hope that the combination of a settlement with Macerich Leader and the NCIDA's long-term tax stabilization plan will give the mall a reprieve, giving it breathing room to rebound and retain more than 800 jobs. In turn, that will help the restaurants, bars, stores, and other businesses nearby that depend on mall traffic. Also on Wednesday, NCIDA approved the 15-year package of tax breaks totaling $9.5 million for Visocom Site Development's Tonawanda Island housing project, assistance that was made more necessary after the developer was denied the ability to use money from a federal revolving loan fund for brownfield cleanup costs. Clarence-based Phizone is seeking to redevelop the former City of North Tonawanda's fire training property by constructing a 4-story building at 78 Bridge Street with 114 market-rate apartments and 9 short-term vacation rental units, besides the studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments, which would range from 720 to 1,200 square feet. The $24.2 million project also includes 2,000 square feet of commercial space and a 10-car garage. Additionally, Visone would use the adjacent site at 96 Bridge for a new river walk along a portion of the Niagara River known as Little River. There are no buildings on the 3.5-acre site, but it needs to be remediated under the state brownfield cleanup program. Plans call for capping the polluted soil with the building foundations and other hard surfaces, and 2 feet of clean soil will also be trucked in for the rest of the site. That is at least $2.5 million just for the cleanup, plus facade upgrades and public access investments. That is why Visone sought a 15-year tax break instead of the standard 10 years. Other funding includes $18 million in bank loans, $3.6 million in developer equity, and a $2.5 million pro-housing grant from the state. But it's also counting on $1 million low-interest loan from a federal Environmental Protection Agency fund that counties are allowed to disperse. Instead, officials learned to their surprise that the project was not eligible because the county itself had owned the property decades ago. Visone helps to break ground on 6 months of cleanup in the fall, followed by construction. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Thursday, June 18th, on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more reading after this short break. Your readers today are Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. And I don't know what happened to Nick, so I think we'll just go to our second hour. I don't think you want to listen to our hot breaths. So let us continue. We'll continue now with our reading of articles and features from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak.
And we will now go into our, oh, here he is. Okay.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we'll continue our reading of today's Buffalo News. As a reminder that tomorrow, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service will not be open due to the Juneteenth holiday. Our program is going to be a little different. At 9 o'clock, you'll hear a re-airing of this morning's Buffalo News. Following that at noon, we'll be playing some content from our friends at IAIS. I'm going off memory because the computer's not agreeing with me. But stay with us for what these are when I have the sheet with what they are on me. But stay with us. Ernie Buffalo News will continue in just a second.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. And let's see what's going on in our region and the city. 21 celebrate citizenship at naturalization service. Religious persecution drove Samira Sultana out of her home country of Bangladesh. The next 13 years were a long road, but Sultana officially became a U.S. citizen during a naturalization ceremony aboard the USS Little Rock at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park on Wednesday morning. A dream come true, Sultana said. I didn't have back there what I have now today. After 13 years and all the hard work, I earned it. When she arrived in the U.S., Sultana attended a college in South Dakota, but without any family support, she had to drop out. She bounced around jobs for a couple of years, including McDonald's, Turkish Cargo Lines, and John F. Kennedy Airport in New York City. Now, a Buffalo resident and mother of 2 young girls, Sultana had held back tears as she explained how her new American citizenship will allow her to raise her family here. I'll always remember how grateful I am for this day, how hard I worked, and how I was appreciated by this country, by this great nation, and I'm truly happy to be part of the nation today. Now, this is my home. I'm proudly saying it's my home. Sultana was joined by 20 other newly naturalized citizens from 13 different countries at Wednesday's ceremony. In addition to Bangladesh, the new Americans hailed from Bhutan, Canada, China, Congo, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Ghana, India, Nepal, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam. The look on the faces of new citizens as they complete the ceremony is palpable, said Brian Llewellyn, CEO and president of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. There's relief, there's joy, and this is one of the happiest events that we host throughout the year here at the Naval Park. Llewellyn helps put on the ceremony every year and noted that this year's event was smaller than in the past. He emphasized the importance of allowing the ceremony to take place on the USS Little Rock, which served as a cruiser during World War II. This is a historic warship, and the ability for these new citizens to take their oath and become citizens in a site that they will likely never forget is very powerful. We hope this memory stands with them in a very proud way for a very long time, said Llewellyn. Presiding over the ceremony was U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo, whose parents were Italian immigrants. As I look out on your happy faces this morning, and I see 21 candidates from 13 countries around the world, I see America, Villardo said during his remarks. We are a great nation, not simply because we are powerful, not simply because we are a democracy and can choose our leaders, and not simply because of the freedoms we have. We are a great nation also because we are a melting pot, because we've taken the best parts of so many nationalities and cultures and made them a part of our country. The federal government's recent crackdown on immigration has brought the issue to the forefront. Since taking office, the Trump administration has pushed to end birthright citizenship, pause processing immigration applications from high-risk countries, and most recently moved to strip 17 naturalized citizens convicted of violent crimes of their citizenship. But many moves by the Trump administration hit headwinds in the court system. Villardo himself, in ruling on a detainee's bid for more time to prepare for his deportation, called tactics employed by immigration and customs enforcement officials downright frightening. The Supreme Court is set to release a decision by the end of this month on Trump's bid to end or limit birthright citizenship. Legal experts and court watchers have called Trump's case a long shot. There's obviously contentious political discussion that happened at the legislative and administrative executive levels that are really challenging, said Llewellyn, whose parents were Irish and Welsh immigrants. But even with that contentiousness, today we celebrate 21 new people and their families becoming part of the American experiment. And to me, that shows that we are still America and we are still very open to welcoming people, just as my family was welcome hundreds of years ago.
DEC chooses UB as state's hub for Great Lakes study. This is written by Mackenzie Schumann, who's a news staff reporter. The University at Buffalo is the state's new hub for research on the Great Lakes. On Tuesday afternoon, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation announced it awarded a $5 million grant to support the Great Lakes Research Consortium, which UB will host. The Great Lakes Research Consortium was established in 1986 and was originally hosted by SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. 4 other schools collaborated with SUNY ESF in the consortium, and that number grew to 16 New York State and 9 Ontario colleges and universities. The consortium lost funding in 2024, but it is now revitalized with the DEC's $5 million 5-year commitment, its leaders said. The University of Buffalo's strategic approach to reestablishing the Great Lakes Research Consortium will focus resources to help improve our understanding of the Great Lakes ecosystems and guide critical management decisions, DEC Commissioner Amanda Lefton said in a prepared statement. DEC looks forward to working with UB to maximize our investments, leveraging existing institutional expertise, infrastructure, and partnerships across New York State and the broader Great Lakes Basin. UB's Research and Education in Energy, Environment, and Water, known as RENEW Institute, will administer the Great Lakes Research Consortium. Diana Aga, director of the RENEW Institute, will also be the consortium's new director. The consortium's mission aligns closely with RENEW's focus on research and education that advances solutions for environmental sustainability, clean water, and resilient communities, August said in a statement. I look forward to leveraging RENEW's demonstrated administrative and institutional strengths to advance the Great Lakes Action Agenda and ensure a healthier environment for New Yorkers. The main goals of the consortium are to facilitate research on the ecosystems within the Great Lakes and ensure findings are disseminated properly so the research can be expanded. The consortium's research is guided by the New York Great Lakes Action Agenda, first published in 2023, which recognized the need to protect and restore the habitat in and around the Great Lakes in New York. Following the action agenda, the consortium's research will focus on the Great Lakes Basin, which includes Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, as well as their watersheds. The mission of the consortium is to improve the scientific understanding of the ecosystems of the basin and the social and political forces that impact the lakes. Past research topics have included genetic changes in hatchery-reared lake trout, cyanobacteria in Canandaigua Lake, gut microbiomes in lake trout, invasive species populations, coastal erosion risk models, identifying the source of microplastics pollution, and testing how phosphorus runoff from agricultural operations can be mitigated. The state's investment in the Great Lakes Research Consortium comes as the federal government has downsized many scientific research agencies under the Trump administration. One such agency is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which has historically conducted vast amounts of research into the Great Lakes on harmful algal blooms, siege events, and lake effect storms, among other things. Shannon Doherty, DEC's Great Lakes Program Director, said the agency chose UB to host the consortium because of the university's ability to collaborate with other institutions within New York, as well as in Canada and other states. They also proposed to redevelop the Great Lakes Research Consortium in a way that was fully inclusive and incentivized participation by other member institutions, Doherty said. And that's very important because we wanted to ensure that this operates as a true consortium, that member institutions truly have a voice and they have access to those same resources. Even though it's administered and hosted by UB, there's a true partnership across institutions in New York. UB has also historically shown it can think creatively about bringing different interdisciplinary research teams together to address complex problems, she added. The $5 million awarded to UB is considered seed money, Doherty said. This money can be used to fund research grants, public outreach campaigns, and seminars. Funding for the consortium comes from the New York Great Lakes Protection Fund and the state's Environmental Protection Fund. At the end of the 5-year grant to UB, the state may reevaluate whether to continue to fund UB as the host of the consortium.
North Tonawanda extends data center moratorium for a year. The North Tonawanda Common Council unanimously approved a 1-year extension of its data center moratorium. The city's current moratorium was set to expire July 16th after it was put in place 2 years ago. City lawmakers voted to extend the moratorium Tuesday night. I was happy the vote went through, North Tonawanda Mayor Austin Tylik said. I think we're in a good position now to have controls in place to make sure we're not the guinea pig anymore with new industries coming in. The moratorium was put in place to address issues at the DigiPower X cryptocurrency mining operation located off Erie Avenue. Since 2022, the facility has used large fans to cool its supercomputers mining for cryptocurrency. Those fans have created a loud humming noise heard throughout the surrounding neighborhoods. Following reporting by the Buffalo News regarding the harms that noise pollution can cause to the health of the residents, the city enacted 2-year moratorium on new data centers or the expansion of existing ones. The moratorium was put in place to allow the city time to update its noise ordinance and zoning laws to account for data centers. The city adopted a new noise ordinance during the February 17th meeting, but has yet to update its zoning laws. In the 2 years since the first moratorium was put in place, the city has issued multiple noise violations to DigiPower X, although the company continues to fight the citations in court. Residents have also filed a class action lawsuit in federal court in Buffalo against the company due to the noise pollution. The new 1-year moratorium effectively blocks DigiPower X from expanding into an AI data center, which it has proposed at its Erie Avenue property. On June 8th, the company presented a plan to build a 2-story, 80,000 square foot building on the property to replace its cryptocurrency mining computers and instead house AI computers. The move to extend the local moratorium comes after the state legislature approved a 1-year moratorium for data centers. Governor Kathy Hochul has yet to sign the bill.
2 school budget revotes passed, 3 defeated again. Voters in the Grand Island and Cuba Rushford school districts on Tuesday night approved revised budgets after rejecting initial proposals last month. But 3 other Western New York school districts have to figure out how to proceed after voters said no for a second time. Grand Island's revised budget passed. It reduces spending and lowers the property tax levy from the initial proposal. Grand Island was one of 5 districts across Western New York that saw their initial budgets voted down May 19th. It was the first time Grand Islanders had rejected a school budget since 2005. The district news release said the $500,000 worth of cuts don't affect classroom programs. Instead, they targeted unexpected expenses, such as some for utilities, equipment, substitute teachers, and supplies. Voters in the Cuba-Rushford Central budget passed it. The revised budget reduced its tax levy. There are cuts to 11 positions, which include 6 by attrition or not replacing retiring and resigning employees. The administrative position of Director of Special Education will be cut. The cuts also eliminated non-essential positions. Pat?
You are listening to the reading of today's Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour, and we will move on to sports. Plenty of hope. This is the second in a series looking at the Buffalo Bills' AFC opponents entering the offseason. Today, it's the New York Jets. Give the New York Jets credit for this. They know how to sell hope to their woebegone fan base. Now the sole owners of the longest playoff drought in North American major professional sports, after the Sabres finally made the NHL playoffs this year, the Jets at least had 3 first-round draft picks in April to show for their general ineptitude. Of course, it remains to be seen if any of those 3 players will amount to anything of significance for a team that has appeared in the playoffs, that last appeared in the playoffs in the 2010 AFC Championship game. The Jets are coming off a horrific 3-14 season under first-year Herd coach Aaron Glenn, who looked for all the world like he was going to be the one and done on the job. The Jets closed out the regular season by playing in what was the final game of the old Highmark Stadium against the Bills and displayed a whole bunch of quit in losing 35-8 to a group of mostly Bills backups. Despite that, the Jets stayed with their plan, which General Manager Darren Mogi and Glenn have said centers on providing stability to an organization that has long lacked it. I think that's one of the things that you want to do as a coach and GM is to start talking about how do we stabilize the team in general and those important parts of the team that you want to make sure you build those up and make those a strong point of what you want to do, Glenn told the New York Daily News recently. Off-season buzz. To that end, the focus for the Jets during the off-season has been to rebuild on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Defensively, the team swung a trade for massive nose tackle Tavondre Sweat, sending edge rusher Jermaine Johnson II to the Titans. New York also signed edge rushers Kingsley Angari and Joseph Osai, a sizable free agent contracts, along with lineman David Onyemata. On the offensive line, Joe Tippmann signed a 4-year contract extension worth up to $66.4 million, while guard Dylan Parham came over from the Raiders in free agency. All of the Jets' 5 projected starters, along with decent offensive line, are signed through the 2027 season. Who's new? The first 3 first-round picks, starting with Texas Tech edge rusher David Bailey, chosen 2nd overall. He'll be counted on to provide an immediate boost to the pass rush. At number 16 overall, the Jets took Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq, then followed by trading up to number 30 overall near the end of the first round to add Indiana wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. They joined veteran receiver Garrett Wilson and running back Breece Hall to provide a nice set of skill position players. With their 4th pick, the Jets chose slot corner D'Angelo Pons at number 50 overall. The Jets also traded a 7th-round pick to the Dolphins for safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, who should provide some leadership to a rebuilt defense. The same is true of veteran linebacker Demario Davis, who signed a 2-year deal. The Justin Fields experiment at quarterback didn't work out. He was traded this offseason to Kansas City. Tyrod Taylor departed for the Packers, making the Jets perhaps the most quarterback-needy team in the league. Geno Smith was acquired in the trade with the Raiders for a second act in New York. He'll be the starter, but you can bet the Jets will be in the quarterback market in the 2027 draft. Edge rusher Michael Clemens, who has quite the rivalry with Bills left tackle Deion Dawkins, signed with Indianapolis. A pair of guards, John Simpson, Ravens, and Elijah Vera Tucker, Patriots, also left in free agency, as did linebacker Quincy Adams, Browns. Kicker Nick Folk, Falcons, who had seemingly been in the league for 3 decades, also left. Without looking it up, it feels like Folk's success rate on field goals of 50-plus yards is about 95%. Key number 15. That suggests playoff drought. As we all know too well here in Buffalo, that number can be a black cloud over an organization. That's especially true in the pressure-packed New York media market. Until the Jets break the drought, they're going to feel that pressure in everything they do. It seems impossible to think Glenn could survive another 4 or 5-win season. What's next? The Jets' strength of schedule ranks number 21 in the NFL. Given the quarterback situation, it feels like an inevitably that the playoff drought will stretch to 16 seasons. The Jets have 3 more first-round picks in 2027, though, so if they can find a franchise quarterback with one of them, perhaps a path out of the abyss exists.
And on soccer, U.S. needs to be wary of physical Australia team. The United States will hope to keep the party going after starting the World Cup with a fluid attacking display, but must be wary of an Australia side which began with a famous victory and has been fired up by misplaced disrespect. Few would have predicted that Friday's game could decide who tops Group D, but the co-hosts' 4-1 rout of Paraguay, followed by the Socceroos' 2-0 humbling of Turkey, makes the winners firm favorites to progress to first place. The skill and swagger with which the U.S. dismantled Paraguay has rightly prompted a wave of excitement among its fans, which the side will seek to channel in Seattle. But Australia poses a significant threat. It is physically imposing, well-drilled defensively, and quick and clinical on the counter, all of which it showed against Turkey. The U.S. is fully aware of Australia's dangers after a fiery friendly in October in which Christian Pulisic was forced off injured. The forward's fitness for the rematch is again in question after he trained separately this week. Despite Pulisic nursing a calf issue which he initially picked up in training, teammate Tim Way said on Tuesday that the winger, who has withdrawn in halftime against Paraguay after aggravating the problem, should be able to play a part. Pulisic recorded an assist and was the key player in the setup to an own goal in the USMNT's defeat of Paraguay on June 12th. He did not get any work on the field during the 15-minute portion of Tuesday's practice, which media members were allowed to observe. USMNT coach Mauricio Pochettino simply said Pulisic was good when asked for an update on his status Monday. Some U.S. pundits have been disparaging about Australia, prompting midfielder Connor Metcalf this month to say that there's been so much rubbish and I'm just sick of it. But Turkey can tell the U.S. all about underestimating Australia. The captain said his side was more talented and would dominate before their unexpected defeat. Perhaps sensibly, after the goal scorer said Australia took his words as motivation, Way tried to play down things, saying all the talk is just nonsense. His U.S. teammate Sebastian Berhalter recalled October's battle, during which the coach berated his players for not matching the Australians' physicality. Way said the U.S. had become more aggressive since then, and and put the change down to the comments saying that Argentina had showed us Americans what we're about. We're American and we don't take anything, Berhalter said. Australia's Asando Sarati, though, said much of the same of his countrymen. We don't take it either. That should be a good match.
Oh, yeah. I think that'll have some major ratings.
Yeah.
Okay, the standings for baseball. In the American League East, New York is leading with 44 wins and 27 losses. Tampa Bay is second with 41 wins and 29 losses. In the Central Division, Chicago is leading with 38 wins and 33 losses, and Cleveland is second with 39 wins and 34 losses. In the West American League, Seattle is leading with 38 wins and 36 losses, and the Athletics are second with 36 wins and 37 losses. Now we go to the National League. In the National League, the East, Atlanta is leading with 46 wins and 25 losses. Philadelphia second with 40 wins and 33 losses. In the Central National League, Milwaukee is leading with 44 wins and 26 losses. St. Louis is second with 40 wins and 31 losses. And in the West National League, Los Angeles is leading with 47 wins and 27 losses. San Diego is second with 37 wins and 35 losses. Ruth?
From the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs named former assistant Jim Hiller as the 41st head coach in franchise history on Wednesday morning. He returns to Toronto after serving 4 seasons as an assistant coach under Mike Babcock from 2015 to 19. He spent parts of the last 3 campaigns as head coach for the Los Angeles Kings before being fired on March 1st. Hiller replaces former Maple Leafs chief head coach Greg Berube, who was fired May 13th, and said after Chaika said a change was necessary because of a need for an organizational shift. Toronto posted a 32-36-14 record this past season to finish last in the Atlantic Division. Hiller compiled a 93-58-24 record in 175 games as head coach with Los Angeles. The Vegas Golden Knights named Ryan Craig as the team's 5th head coach in franchise history. The news came one day after Vegas announced that John Tortorella would not return as the bench boss. The Golden Knights season ended Sunday with a 6-game loss to the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. The Nashville Predators acquired veteran center Ross Colton from the Colorado Avalanche on Tuesday in a trade that featured 3 players and 2 draft picks changing hands. The Predators added Colton minor league goaltender Isaac Porsche in exchange for goaltender Magnus Krona, Nashville's 3rd-round pick in the 2026 draft. The high-scoring Stanley Cup final turned into a ratings win for ABC, which drew the highest viewership for the NHL's championship round in 7 years, the network announced Tuesday. The Carolina Hurricanes' 6-game win over the Vegas Golden Knights attracted an average of 5.2 million viewers. The last time more people tuned in to see the Stanley Cup final was in 2019, when they watched the St. Louis Blues top the Boston Bruins in 7 games. Pat.
Okay, let's see what kind of advice Eric is putting forth today. Dear Eric, I'm mid-50s, have 3 jobs, 2 part-time, and a college professor. I also have 3 grown children, a husband, my parents, and many friends. I constantly get requests from coworkers and other friends for happy hours, dinners, brunches, workshops, seminars, and other events. As it is, I have a brutal work schedule of about 60 to 80 hours per week, not including personal tasks and then social events. It's not impacting my health yet. How do I respond with, I just want some peace and quiet, without offending people? Or perhaps a better question is, am I prioritizing the right things in my life? Signed, Overworked in Colorado. Dear Overworked, anyone working as much as you are deserves as much or as little brunch, work shopping, or sleeping as they want. It does sound like you're prioritizing a lot, some of it like your jobs by necessity. You're doing what you have to do to make your life work and show up as much as you can for those closest to you. If you're not feeling the need right now to expand your professional network through socializing, and you're not receiving any informed feedback that would suggest said socializing might materially benefit you, then you're fine to skip it. It's not just something that works for you right now. Right now is not forever. You're free to change your mind. Excuse me. Change your schedule, say yes to one thing and no to 100 other things. We all do this. No one is universally available for every plan. It's important to remember that other people's priorities aren't your priorities. So if someone gets offended by you saying, I appreciate the invite, but I'm at capacity right now, that's not a problem you need to clean up. Peace and quiet is absolutely a valid reason to decline plans. You can't pour from an empty cup. Next letter. Dear Eric, I am 72 years old and have been divorced for almost 25 years. For the first 12 years or so after my divorce, I dated a lot. I met men through dating websites and through mutual friends. However, I finally left the dating scene for several reasons. I'm content with my singleness. I have many friends and acquaintances through church where I volunteer. Earlier this year, I became Facebook friends with a man who is a cousin of a mutual friend. I am really not interested in becoming serious with anyone. After weeks of communicating through Facebook Messenger, he mentioned meeting me for lunch. I agreed, thinking it would be nice to have a male friend to do things together occasionally, like dining out or going to the movies. However, I didn't mention this during our online correspondence. I had a great time and we have quite a few things in common. He is funny and made me laugh. However, I made no mention during our lunch that I only wanted friendship. Why? Because of his table manners, talking with his mouth full of food, and his hygiene. His fingernails were ragged and dirty. I can't see myself spending any more time in his presence. Since then, he has hinted through Facebook correspondence at getting together again. I wouldn't mind a friendship, but how can I tell him why I don't want to spend time with him? I don't want to hurt his feelings. Sounds like you might have some conflicting impulses with regard to this person, which is fine. You write that you enjoyed your time but wouldn't mind a friendship. But you also write that you can't see yourself spending more time in his presence. These are both reasonable feelings. You're entitled to your opinion, but it leads me to believe this isn't a match for you right now. Now, if you were interested in developing a friendship, you could certainly express what you'd like to change for it to happen. That is, suggesting that you not go out to eat because you prefer not to see people talking with food in their mouths. It would also be appropriate in this conversation to set an expectation about what kind of friendship you're looking for. That is, friendship or nothing romantic. It's never too late to define the boundary. The things you found objectionable about him are relatively minor and can be worked around or adjusted. That's part of what friendship entails. Meeting each other in the middle, if you do think it's worth pursuing, be upfront and kind. But if you don't want to pursue it, you don't have to go into detail. Just saying you appreciate his time, but it's not a match, is fine.
Our first life feature, Partnership CEO Gallagher retiring after 13-year run. This is by Matt Glynn, who's a new staff reporter. Dottie Gallagher understands that she can't please everyone as CEO of the Buffalo Niagara Partnership. In fact, Gallagher figures she can't even come close. It's a tough job, she says. I say you make 50% of the people angry 100% of the time. And it's not the same 50%. That's a big challenge that comes with leading the region's largest business group, consisting of 1,300 members of all sizes, including for-profit and nonprofit employers. Sometimes they have competing interests. So it's how you navigate that and how you use the lens of what's best for the community overall. It's a job Gallagher has embraced for 13 years but is ready to hand off. She retires as CEO on June 30th. Grant Loomis, the partnership's president and chief operating officer, will succeed her. Since the partnership was created through a 1993 merger, only two different people have led the group, Andrew Rudnick and Gallagher. For Gallagher, leading the partnership has been an ongoing education as new complex issues arose. Case in point, the state's climate law. We have really been the voice of reason, I think, stating at the outset we agree that climate change is real and that you have to manage it. But we can't shut down the economy while we do that, and the targets are unrealistic. Environmental groups urged Governor Kathy Hochul and lawmakers to stay the course, but the emissions reduction targets were pushed back by a decade. Advocacy is part of the partnership's work. Each year, the business group releases an agenda of issues that are pressing to the business community. The list goes hand in hand with the work Gallagher and her staff do, making their case to lawmakers. Gallagher said the partnership's advocacy can have lasting effects. She recalled when the group successfully pushed for the state to maintain brownfield cleanup tax credits, a tool for reviving upstate industrial properties. Sometimes Gallagher had to deal with the unexpected. The lockdowns and uncertainty stemming from the pandemic in 2020 posed a dire threat to businesses. The partnership reorganized its staff, focusing on helping businesses adapt to regulations and restrictions imposed on them. The pandemic really created this very strange paradox where it was a moment in time for many of our members that they could not commit to membership, but at the same time, they needed us more than they ever had. The partnership distilled the constantly changing information from the government at different levels and relayed it as quickly as possible. Gallagher made the decision to provide that help to all businesses, regardless of their membership status. We have had several folks come back to us and say, absent you guys doing that work day in and day out through the height of the pandemic, I'm not sure how we could have gotten through it. Emmerling recalls the tremendous pressure the partnership was under at the time. Revenue had plunged and membership had declined. Gallagher met one-on-one with members that weren't adversely affected, asking them to help the partnership weather the financial storm, and those efforts raised $1 million. It would have been easy for the partnership to just fall apart and lose all of our talented staff. It didn't happen. The partnership played a behind-the-scenes role responding to the May 14, 2022 mass shooting of a Tops supermarket that killed 10 black people. The business group worked with Tops to ensure a committee for a fund set up for victims was representative of the community, and the partnership acted as the go-between for donations from businesses that wanted to help cover funeral expenses. For the past 2 years, Gallagher has been actively involved in efforts to grow the semiconductor sector in upstate New York. That spawned a new type of collaboration. The partnership teamed up with its counterparts in Rochester and Syracuse on a joint bid that secured $40 million in federal money plus $8 million in state funds. Under the NY Smart I-Corridor banner, the three regions are trying to build a semiconductor superhighway across upstate, supporting innovation, workforce development, and creating a network of suppliers. Gallagher has high hopes for the semiconductor opportunity and believes the joint effort with Rochester and Syracuse can be extended to other initiatives. Gallagher said the partnership needs to stay in tune with the needs of its members, especially to support their workforce. During her tenure, the partnership called for reforms related to the benefits cliff, referring to when workers earn too much to qualify for public assistance benefits, but not enough to cover the cost of those benefits. Mulligan said under Gallagher's leadership, the partnership showed commitment to issues in the broader community, not just the business community. There's a full engagement in trying to improve the economic climate for everyone. The partnership also called attention to child care needs, which was not a typical Chamber of Commerce issue. The business group responded to employers that wanted help diversifying their workforces and offered free membership to the smallest of businesses to bring more of them aboard. Loomis said Gallagher was influential in broadening membership beyond the traditional image of businesses that joined the partnership. The partnership recently hosted a small business event where over 1/3 of the 75 owners attended were people of color. That wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, and that was the fruit of some very deliberate, intentional work that Dottie has felt very strongly about. I certainly see part of my responsibility going forward is to carry that mantle and continue that work. Gallagher said last September passed the president's duties to Loomis while remaining CEO to prepare for her retirement. Loomis joined the partnership in 2015 and has taken on greater responsibilities over time. Emmerling said Gallagher has helped prepare Loomis for the job. He's been getting encouragement during this period from Dottie. She hasn't just walked away, she's very supportive. Loomis said he appreciated how Gallagher put him in rooms and situations where he was able to demonstrate his abilities. He believes that gave the board the confidence in him as its choice for CEO when the time came. Last year, the partnership moved into new offices in the Cobblestone District, next door to KeyBank Center. It was a deliberate decision to stimulate more activity downtown post-pandemic. Members frequently use the space for their own training sessions and meetings, Gallagher said. She remembers when there was an expectation that business leaders would become civically engaged as they climbed the ladder. She thinks that expectation has diminished as many people became internally focused on their businesses during the pandemic, and it's something she would like to see change. What will Gallagher do next? She's still figuring that out. I know what I'm not going to do, she said. I'm not going to work for anybody, and I don't want anybody working for me. But I'm going to do something.
I bet she is. What a great contribution she did. That's awesome. Good luck to her. And our second live feature is County allocates $5.5 million to repair crumbling jails. With Erie County Holding Center, Sergeant Justin Big Eye was originally hired as a jail deputy supervising inmates and detainees, but on any given day, he is instead dealing with clogged toilets, lost water pressure, and oversight of a long laundry list of maintenance and repair projects. Joseph Noah, superintendent of the Sheriff's Jail Management Division, can similarly rattle off issues: broken porcelain toilet, destroyed light fixtures, steel-reinforced rear cell walls, stained and corroded with rust after years of corrosion from water and urine. It's hard to keep up, said Noah, who previously worked at the Attica State Prison, where jail destruction by inmates was less frequent. There is something new almost every day. We try to see around corners. It's kind of hard to do. The Sheriff's Office and Department of Public Works are planning to move forward with the $5.5 million plan to address some of the jail's most urgent needs, call it Plan B. Erie County Sheriff John Garcia had campaigned aggressively for Plan A. That was a new county jail, or the ability to consolidate jail services at an expanded and reconstructed existing jail. But despite support from County Executive Mark Poloncarz, county legislators killed that effort in a bipartisan vote in December after looking at minimum price tag estimates of $430 million, likely more. Arguments that a new jail would save money in maintenance and personnel costs over the next few decades gain no traction against the political fallout of raising property taxes to build a $500 million jail. The death of the new jail campaign, however, comes with its own costs. Continuing to maintain and use the existing holding center downtown and the Erie County Holding Center in Alden will likely cost tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars over time. Engineering and design consultants who looked at new jail options initially estimated the cost of keeping the jails functioning for the next few decades at $250 million. Garcia told the Buffalo News last month that the investment of millions into the current jails is simply putting lipstick on a pig. Keep on saying, do you put 10 million more into each jail, and how long do you go and do that for? The immediate answer seems to be yes, and for quite a while. The county legislature approved a central budget with millions borrowed for a variety of construction and repair projects. That includes $5.5 million earmarked this year for repairs and improvements to the holding center and correctional facility. That allocation covers $4 million for new air ventilation units at the holding center and correctional facility, $500,000 for new recreation area fencing at both jail locations to replace damaged areas and fortify outdoor areas against drone-dropped contraband, and $500,000 to replace numerous toilets and sinks and plumbing valves with institutional stainless steel units. Another $500,000 is earmarked for ongoing design consulting work over the next 2 years to help the county determine how to best go about repairing and replacing other failing jail components and determine in what order future repairs should be made, said Tracy Chahaki, Deputy Commissioner of the Division of Buildings and Grounds. Assuming the county legislature says yes to the spending plan, the process to begin making some of those upgrades to existing jails could begin swiftly, either through using existing government contract bids and cooperative government purchasing groups, or through a public bidding. Not all parts of the two county jails are in equally bad shape, though some parts of the holding center date to the 1930s. Other areas were renovated decades later and feature more updated group housing pods. In addition, the correctional facility was constructed as a modern facility in the 1980s. The design of both buildings is still regarded as inadequate and inefficient by modern-day correction standards. But the linear jail section of the holding center, which features bars and locking mechanisms that aren't made anymore, is considered the worst. These sets of jail cells are stacked across 4 floors and feature many units that can't be used because they no longer open and close. We can't just go on to Amazon and order one and get it here, said Sheriff's Office spokesperson Chris Horvatis. In a letter sent to the county legislature last week, Garcia said 17 cells are unusable due to failing locks, and across the entire holding center, 155 cells are considered unusable due to various mechanical, electrical, and plumbing-related issues. Begay pointed out sections of rust along the back wall of steel in 4 cells where jail residents could pry out rusted metal pieces to use as weapons against other inmates and detainees. He also navigated the narrow catwalk between the rear cell walls, where exposed metal beams and plumbing pipes highlight the extent of the corrosion, leaving gaping holes in some places. Everywhere you look, there's a Band-Aid. Breakdowns and failures at the two jail facilities attract public attention, and that is intentional. The holding center made headlines in February when a stench started filtering through the jail and adjacent administrative offices. After much investigation, the source of the foul smell was found to be a broken pipe hanger below the kitchen. Food debris, grease, and dirty water had apparently been leaking out of the pipes below the kitchen and filling up the crawl spaces of the jail, possibly for months, resulting in a pool of thousands of gallons of semi-solid and liquid waste. Rats, dead and alive, were found among the waste. Emergency sewer vacuum trucks had to be called in to suck out the waste. In April, firefighters were called to address a fire that started in the holding center's electrical room on the ground floor due to a mechanical malfunction, which had to be put out with a portable fire extinguisher. 4 jail residents were temporarily relocated as a result. Each time the sheriff's office has issued a news release about a breakdown, Garcia has made it a point to send a letter to the county legislature to alert legislators of the latest jail problems. He has said that the legislation can't refuse to build a new jail, then leave him without the resources to address lingering problems that will not go away without expensive, ongoing investment. The county legislature is expected to take up the latest $5.5 million spending request within the next few weeks, now that money has already been approved as part of this year's borrowing package. Legislators on both sides of the aisle, as well as other county officials, have talked about the importance of doing something to address the jails, while reiterating that new jail is not in the cards. I'm sure there's going to be a moment. There's going to be a good amount of money that's going to be put in there, said Legislative Chairman Tim Myers. We're going to have some decisions in front of us.
Cancer vaccines based on mRNA advance. Treatments based on the same mRNA technology that delivered COVID-19 vaccines to market in record time show lasting benefit against the deadly skin cancer melanoma and early promise in pancreatic and brain cancers. The apparent breakthroughs in cancer vaccines, deemed one of the fastest growing segments of cancer research, arrive even as U.S. officials send conflicting signals about the technology's merits and safety. More than 130 studies focused on such efforts were presented at the American Society of Clinical Oncology meeting in Chicago this month. At the forefront was Moderna and Merck, whose treatment combining a powerful immunotherapy drug with an experimental made-to-order mRNA cancer vaccine kept melanoma at bay for 5 years, a milestone in efforts to create personalized vaccines to train the immune system to fight cancer. Pat, do you want to read the My View, or should I?
I would love to read My View. We're going to finish with My View. Not a fun collection, but necessary. Submitted by Jim Williams of Buffalo, talks about his most recent collection habit. Like many of you, I've been a collector of some sorts, not a hoarder, a collector. In my early teens, I collected Topps baseball cards. Number one, I did not have a Mickey Mantle 1952 Rickey card, which recently sold for $12.6 million. My father, who was a Major League Baseball scout, would receive packets of Topps baseball cards in which bubblegum was included. If there were any players that he signed and were promoted to the major leagues, there would be a picture of the player he signed on the card along with the bubblegum. On numerous occasions, he would be honored by Topps as Baseball Scout of the Month. You can see why I enjoyed collecting these cards. I also dabbled in collecting postage stamps. This form of hobby was made famous by Franklin D. Roosevelt, our 32nd president. He collected more than 1.2 million stamps from around the world. He started his collection as a hobby at the age of 8. He often said he would use the stamps to learn more about the world and found comfort in this hobby while he was recovering from polio. Now, how many of you remember collecting S&H green stamps? Collecting trading stamps was popular in the United States from the end of the 19th century until the late 1980s. They were distributed as part of a rewards program operated by Sperry and Hutchinson, who founded the company in 1896. During the 1960s, S&H Green Stamps issued more stamps than the U.S. Postal Service, along with the distribution of 35 million catalogs a year. Customers would receive these green stamps at checkout counters, supermarkets, department stores, and other retailers, which in turn could be redeemed for products from catalogs or redemption centers. S&H ceased their stamps operation in the late 1980s. You are probably wondering where I am going with this narrative on collecting. Let me explain. For many years, I would have my annual physical with my family doctor. Now you call him your primary physician. Then, as I grew older, my primary doctor suggested, "Jim, I think it's time for you to have a prostate screening from a urologist." Fine. Upon subsequent visits, he noted a cyst on my back and suggested I see a dermatologist. You may have figured out where I'm going by now. I am now collecting medical specialists. My most recent examination by a specialist was to a nephrologist, commonly known as a kidney specialist. In my past visit to specialists, I have had my gallbladder removed by a gastroenterologist, a hearing test with my audiologist, a successful cataract surgery with my ophthalmologist. In the very near future, I will schedule a colonoscopy with, you guessed it, a gastroenterologist. Perhaps many of you have collected your own share of medical specialists. I have been fortunate over the years to have been able to maintain a healthy adult quality of life. I do have to be honest with you and confess that there have been times that I have struggled with pronunciation of technical names for these specialists. It may not be the most enjoyable form of collecting, but these periodic visits to my medical specialist have enhanced my well-being and certainly beats the alternative. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, June 18th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, please call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.
A quick programming note, tomorrow is Juneteenth, so the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service will be closed for the federal holiday. Because of that, our programming will be a little different. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll have a rebroadcast of this morning's Buffalo News, so you'll be hearing my voice around this time tomorrow. At noon, we'll have the African American Hour from our friends at the Audio Reader Service in Kansas City. At 1 o'clock, History Magazine from Mind's Eye. At 4 o'clock, in place of the re-airing of the Buffalo News in the afternoon, we have Blindness and Disability News, also from our friends at Mind's Eye. At 5 o'clock, we have Black Voices from the Audio Reading Service of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And at 5:30, American Heritage from our After Site in Colorado. The programming will be all the same otherwise. So stay with us. We'll be back on our regular schedule Saturday and into Sunday. Stay with us. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,